Come on. We live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome to the Edge of Everyday. Are you standing at your own edge? Are you craving deeper conversations? Do you know there's more waiting for you just beyond your comfort zone? If you answered yes to any of those questions, the Edge of Everyday is the place for you. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and tough talk about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. You know, the ones between fear and courage, grief and joy, ambition and vulnerability, change and becoming. Here, we explore contradiction. Here, we hold paradox. We confront the truths we've been taught to ignore. Real talk with real people that spark provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe. The Edge is where you come alive. The Edge of Everyday. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome back to The Edge of Everyday. Today, we are live in the hive with Mistress Dana Pharant, professional dominatrix, author, and surrender expert for those who, as she says in her Instagram bio, need to get their head out of their ass and back to loving life. Dana is no stranger to the Edge of Everyday podcast. I've had her on the show not once, but twice. Check out those episodes, episode 4 and 7. I absolutely loved our conversations. We touched on so many powerful points, and we did a deep dive down into the dungeon to meet the Dominatrix Archetype and dispel some of the shadowy myths around her power and her service. Much like the Witch Archetype, the Dominatrix Archetype is misunderstood and maligned in our patriarchal world. In a system that fears women's power and vilifies women's sexuality, both the witch and the dominatrix understand that sexual energy equals life force energy, and that sexual consciousness is imperative for human consciousness evolution. Sexuality, in our modern times, becomes more interesting not when it is purely physical, but when it collides with power, identity, shame, freedom, ritual, vulnerability, and transformation. Today, we'll explore Dana's discovery of kink, her work with energy-based healing modalities, and in using the wisdom work of sacred sexuality and surrender, how her inner dominatrix coaching work translates seamlessly to leadership, business, and entrepreneurship. But most importantly, Dana will regale us with stories and wisdom from her globe-trotting as a courageous and compassionate nomad, all told in her newly released sixth book, Go Ask the Dolphins, A Journey of Sex, Surrender, and Letting Go. I'm so excited for this conversation, but before we dive in, let me share her bio. Dana Pharant is a woo-woo master with the power to see people's core issues. She has a strong penchant for personal development, is a borderline crazy cat lady, and she helps alpha men and women face their shit so they can feel more alive, have more sex, and make more money. Dana is a dominatrix, sexual high priestess, a 7-figure CEO, and a 5-times best-selling author. With her newly released 6th book, which has been described as Eat, Pray, Love meets 50 Shades, being well on its way to becoming her next bestseller. Welcome back, Dana.
Oh, Sandra, that's delightful. Oh my God, it's the best intro ever. So good. And to listen to you articulate it, I get chills. It's so good.
Oh my God. I'm using my best bedroom voice. My best
It's
dungeon
lovely,
voice.
darling.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, mistress. Well, I always like to share, as you know, or as you may recall from our former conversations, which again, listeners, I say absolutely go and revisit them. They are so compelling and so interesting, and to understand and to pull it apart, all of it, to pull it apart psychologically was so informative and so expansive. So I really suggest you go back and not that this conversation will not be exactly
Right.
the same.
Hopefully, even better.
Hopefully, even better. Well, after the
Yeah.
journey you've been on, I suspect so.
Mm.
But and I remember your excitement in our conversations and your trepidation and your all of the feels for your upcoming nomadic year of surrender. But before we get into that, my listeners like to know how I meet my guests, and you and I share a mutual friend, Cindy Ashton. A shout out to our friend Cindy, who introduced us, and when I was beginning my podcast, she said, "Well, you have to have my friend Dana on," and I said, "You better believe it, I do." And I'm very grateful that she did.
Me too.
Yeah. So, as I like to ask all of my guests, this is my first question, and I will ask it of you. What identity do you lead with, Dana?
Oh my goodness. It's interesting, Sandra. I would say that I'm in the midst of yet another, resorting, who am I? What is my identity? What are these things? So what identity do I lead with? I think I'm coming to a place of, dare I say the word authenticity, because it is so overused, but it is finding the
Mm,
core of me and and I think integrating all of these aspects.
mm,
So, the dominatrix is one aspect, the healer is another aspect, the business coach is an aspect, running a business is an aspect. All of these pieces exist in me, and they
mhm,
don't always come out at the same time, but they make up a full package. So I'm sorting through, who am I as an entire being?
mm. I love that. But I can relate to that so much being multi-hyphenate, but I see all of the things that I do in the same way that I see all of the things that you do as being the dots are very connectable. And this overarching umbrella, of course, you said it on your website, surrender is key. It's overarching umbrella of that. I love that. And yes, authenticity can feel like it's being overused. However, it's the perfect word. I get it. I can only imagine. I have so much respect for what you did, that you chose to. Well, I'll let you tell the story, but we're going to wait one more second until we get into that. Um,
My
uh-oh.
internet froze and I didn't know what you said.
Oh, okay. It's all good. All good. I think we're back. So anyway, we're going to assume that there were no breaks in it. And as my listeners know, we're live in the hive. We don't edit around here.
Okay.
We want to see how people deal with the mistakes and the blips, just like live theater, just like real life.
Yes. And we will have one more blip because I just noticed that my battery is running quite low on my computer. So,
Oh, do
uh,
you want to
yeah,
hold and we can go, you
maybe
can
can we
get your
pause?
thing? Yeah, let
Yeah.
me see if I can figure out how to pause. Uh-oh. Record, pause. I think pause recording there. And we are back. Very exciting. So I want to start, just dive in with how much I loved your book. And as I said, how courageous I thought you were on so many levels to take this time and to really, really focus on yourself in a way that we're going to get to in our conversation. But at every turn, when you had the opportunity to be pulled from your commitment to being led by the universe, you kept choosing to listen to the universe and yourself first and foremost, to your own wisdom.
Hmm.
So, folks, the name of the book again, Go Ask the Dolphins, A Journey of Sex, Surrender, and Letting Go. I loved the title. Oh, there it is for those of you who are watching the video. It's so great. So why dolphins? Did you ask the dolphins? A. And B, is surrender different or the same as letting go?
Ah, wow. Okay, great questions. The title Go Ask the Dolphins was guided to me. And it's
Mhm.
only after I sat with it a little bit and then looked up, what is the spiritual meaning of the dolphins that I was like, oh my goodness, this is so on point for what I was doing in the journey, which I ended up putting in the book because people do ask, why the dolphins, right? So you find that
The
on the
Native
first page,
American wisdom, yes, of
right?
dolphins.
Dolphins symbolize joy, harmony, protection, and intelligence, often acting as messengers of peace and emotional balance. Representing a deep connection with nature, they embody free-spiritedness, guiding humans toward inner wisdom, playful living, and effective communication. Associated with renewal, dolphins represent the ability to heal emotional wounds and undergo personal transformation. Now, you've read the book. Is that like
Uh,
not just like
that's like so
on
all
point?
of it, like that on point, and on point. Playful,
Yes,
communication, deep communication,
yes,
healing trauma. Holy moly,
yes.
perfection.
Then we also have a layer of, dolphins are one of the few animals that have sex for the joyful, like the joy of it, the
Not just to
play, the
procreate. Yeah,
yeah, it's a way to connect. It's a way to experience their bodies. They love to have,
mm,
communication and connection with other animals, not just dolphins. So
right.
they're a beautiful representation for that. Did I ask the dolphins on the journey when I was down in Costa Rica? I did sit and talk with them. They were, of course, off in the distance, so we didn't get like a, face to face, but
A
they were there.
one-on-one. I love it. I just love it. Well, and you did see them. You saw them a few times in your
Yeah.
travels. Yeah, totally. And my other question, and this just popped up for me. I
Oh, right. The letting go.
surrender and letting go. I mean, of course, there's so many directions we can take that, but I want to hear your answer.
I think there's overlap. I think to me, surrender feels deeper than letting go. Letting go is like, oh, this person annoys me. I'm gonna let go of my annoyance of them. That's not the same as like I'm gonna give myself over to something.
Right.
To me, like when I think about if anybody's ever done a psychedelic experience, that's like probably the place where you have to let go. You have to drop in and just not try to fight the medicine as it's moving through your body. You have to open up and let yourself just be in whatever mess shows up. And that's feels much deeper than simply letting go. Like, I mean, there's beauty in letting go. Don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
totally. Yeah.
It's
I mean, I think, but if I just do a one-liner, letting go is by no means surrender, but surrender requires letting go.
oh yes.
Yeah. I mean, just it's sort of yeah, to your point, two different levels.
Yeah.
Um, but I love the title. I love the book. And as I told Dana in our pre-chat, I try to read all of my guests as much as their book as I can. And normally that's more than half at least, but I read all of Dana's book. I just loved it. You're a lovely writer. And you have a Substack, which of course we'll talk about at the end when you're knowing where people can find you, but you're a wonderful writer.
Aw, thank you.
So this is from the preface of Dana's book. She says, everything you are about to read is a true story. It is my story, told in the best way I know how, honest and raw. I'm exposing myself to you in a way that I would have preferred to run away from. My journey around parts of the world was guided by the universe, although you may call it source, God, great spirit, or any other name. I went to places because I was led there, not out of any need to fulfill a bucket list, but rather to deeply surrender to the universe as my guide and caretaker. I was learning to trust at a level I have always wanted. And yet, ironically, my deep attachment to being in control kept me from experiencing it. Control versus surrender. I mean, talk to me. When you say you call yourself described control freak. Have you been that way all your life, or do you think that that's a bit of a trauma response? This might be a great place for you to share, where
I
you're.
think it's there's definitely a big proponent of a trauma response. I grew up in a very um, controlling environment. My home, we were raised in a religious cult. We were raised Jehovah Witness, and my parents were extreme with it. And my stepmother, she's a narcissist, and I jokingly, half jokingly, refer to myself as Cinderella because I had a wicked stepmother and two ugly stepsisters. One was a boy, but they were both ugly. So,
Yeah.
um, and it's that like in growing up with that, I think I was always looking for somewhere I could be in control because everything was out of my control growing up.
Mm,
And then that just spilled over to it became effective in certain ways. And we know that, when we create a trauma response and it's somewhat effective, we hang on to it for dear life.
mhm,
Um, so I did a lot of control. I was trying to control other people. I was trying to control my environment, what was happening, how it was happening. And like I said, it's twofold in that it can be good, like it helped me build a seven-figure business, great.
right.
And I was a hot mess in doing that. I was so stressed because I was doing it from push energy. I was trying to control it all the time instead of going, okay, how does this need to unfold? How does it want to unfold? And where do I even want this business? I mean, that was a question I came to at some point with it. Um, so I think there's been a lot of gifts in being in hyper control,
Mm,
but I took it too far. And so
yeah.
the surrender journey has allowed me to release the trauma pieces of that and come around to where does the control actually serve me? And that place, of course, in the dungeon.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
But it's a control from a place of love, not a control from being a spaz. And I think that's a big difference.
Yeah. Wow. So the control piece in the dungeon, let's maybe talk about, I want to know why you wanted to write this book, but maybe the next thing for you to share would be how you discovered kink and potentially the good aspects of control that might have been attached to going into the dungeon.
Mhm. Um, I think with the book, honestly, that, starting out on the journey, the book gave me a motivation to keep the journey going, because I could
Mhm.
detach into something. I was doing something. I was like making my notes and and I thought of it early on as an Eat, Pray, Love Meets 50 Shades of Grey. I said that to a lot of people that I was like, well, instead of eat, I'm going to have sex. That's going to be the first part of it, right? And it didn't work out that way. The first part of the book is a lot of sex. Um, and then the prey is talking to animals. So there's some differences, but I think ultimately having that focus was another motivation to keep going because there were lots of times that it was really hard and I'd be, a sobbing mess, crying to friends at home and they're all like, don't
I can
even
only
bother
imagine.
because you're in Bali. I don't want to hear it. You know?
You are rubbing some salt in my wound.
Right.
I have no sympathy. No,
Right.
I get it, but my God, the level of trust and the level of, I mean, you tell us the story of prior to making this decision, you got out of a long-term relationship, and which she shares about in the book as well. And tell that story and getting rid of all your things and just going on it and
Oh, yeah,
making
like
this
preparing
decision.
for the journey was a journey of itself. I I had to come to the realization that I was in a sexless marriage, and that for me is now number one marker of this is not a good fit for me. If I
Yeah,
don't
it's
want to have
hard to
sex with the
fathom
person that
for
I'm
you.
with, yeah,
Yeah.
I know. With with where I am now,
Like
it's
you
hard
of
to
all people, but it's sort of
right?
like, yeah, the universe is
Yeah.
pay
And some of my
attention.
lovers now, they're like, you didn't want sex. I'm like, I know. But that's the trauma response. That's the
Yeah.
I'm going to
Oh
shut it
man.
all down, turn it all off, and then I can just be a roommate for this person. And then when I finally started to really acknowledge what was going on, what I needed to look at, then I had to say, this is not the partner for me anymore. He was
Mm,
great when we first met. We were a really good match then, and he is a good man.
yeah.
We parted as friends. He was really good to deal with, but it was still hard. There was a lot of emotions. And
Mm.
then I also had to sell everything. And there was a layer of oh my God, I'm going to sell my house. I'm not going to have anything. Now I'm going to be a bag lady on the street, a bag lady with a chunk of money, but still, I'm going to be a bag lady, right?
Yeah.
And, and then the other big thing that was hard was, I had to rehome my kitty cat. And yeah,
Oh,
like, talk about any of you pet owners, if you go think about giving away your babies, that was
oh
hard, but
my.
I couldn't take them with me. I knew
Yeah.
I couldn't. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of pain in order to get on this journey. And then, my control piece was that I thought I was going to be driving a lot. So I, traded in my little sedan for an SUV because I was like, oh, I'm going to need space. And then I packed the SUV to the max. I have to dig out that photo and get that on the website because it's hilarious. Like to the max. I packed everything. My yoga mat was in there. My coloring books were in there. I mean, I was like, I may need this, right? Like, but when you're downsizing from a whole house to get it down to an SUV, that's pretty amazing. So,
Completely and utterly. Wow.
yeah,
Well, just the thought of, I mean, it's so against the norm in our society. I have to say, I know a few more people in my life now that have chosen a more of a nomadic existence, but a handful, tops. It's
yeah,
just so not what we're taught to want and to aspire to. And in our consumer capitalistic patriarchal society, it's just so the courage to do that, to do it alone, was epic. I
thank you.
found it to be very epic. And I
Yeah,
remember you telling me, feeling that it would be epic when you shared with me that you were aiming to make that happen.
yeah.
Wow. So, did you know when you went on this journey for that you would be, it was solely to collect, to be with yourself and to write a book? Did you know that at that point that you wanted to, when you started selling things off, were you committed to, I'm doing this and I'm writing a book? Or did you discover that you wanted to write the book at a different time?
The book idea popped in when I started traveling. It was like a month in, and I got this like, oh, I'm going on this journey. I've, just left my relationship. I mean, this feels very eat, pray, love. And that point I'm like, I should make notes in case I want to turn it into a book. And the more I
Fabulous.
went along, I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much in here. And, the transformation is kind of, it's been fun to be able to write the stories out in a way that like I feel like I bring the reader with me on this journey. And
Oh,
it's
totally.
like you evolve with me through all the good and the bad. And there's some cringe moments where you're like, oh, don't do it. Like, no. And
Yeah.
you just want to reach out and like, no, don't do it.
Don't do it,
But
Dana. Stop.
yeah,
Stop.
Stop. It's awful. But at the same time, I think that realness, particularly, I think the realness in the sexual areas, that
Mm,
what I've heard from women is how they can relate to, not asking for their pleasure to be a priority, not insisting that he put a condom on, not
right.
like, and I didn't want to write any of that stuff because I was like, this is kind of embarrassing to say. But at the same time, this is real. This is what happens for so many of us.
Right.
And it's not a shame piece. Like we can only do better once we forgive ourselves and give ourselves permission to know this is important because I feel I want to
That's
make me a priority.
so powerful. And that plays in with something that you spoke about throughout the book, this sense of obligation
Mm,
that you
oh
were
my
dealing
God.
with.
Huge.
So these themes are so powerful: surrender, trust, obligation. I was like, oh my God, there's no woman on the face of the planet that cannot relate to the obligation to do A, B, or C for
Yeah.
a partner, a lover, things that you don't want to do, like asking for, no, I'm only doing this if you have a condom, period. I don't care how worked up you may be, how much fun
Hmm.
this is going to be, but how worked up I am. I'm
Yeah.
going to have that faith in myself. What did you discover? Tell a story about the moment you felt like you broke through with that obligation piece.
Well, I honestly, there were some turning points that happened on the journey, but I continued to work through the obligation piece. And I
Mhm.
think it still
It's a
kind of,
spiral.
pops up. It is a spiral. Um, but I would say there was a big turning point in Costa Rica. So Costa Rica was about three-quarters of the way through the journey. And I was down there and there was this fellow who, he just was one of those, geeky kind of like he was awkward and he'd make inappropriate comments, but you could tell that he just didn't know how to flirt. And so right. And so he said something to me about like, oh, I know what it was. It came up that I used to be a massage therapist. And he's
Mm,
like, oh, I've got this pain here, right? Which is something that's like, I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, that's not a good way to get me to give you a massage ever. And I don't ever want to give any free massages because I did that for years for work. Like, no. So it triggered in me
Mm,
that piece of like, what is this? And I was talking with my friend that I'm like, why does he bother me so much? Like, I just want to
mm,
punch him in the face, like really hardcore, want to throat punch him. And so we really got to dissecting a lot more of the obligation piece and how much that shows up at every single turn in my life. It's I think it made me really look at where simple little things like some guy would message me on LinkedIn and he's like, oh, I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to learn more. I'm like, why do I have to take any of my time? And I'd send him a link to say, sure, if you just want to randomly chat, here's my link and you can pay me $250. And he's like, oh, totally offended, right? Like, heaven
right,
forbid a
right.
woman should ask him to pay, right? And yet if some guy
The
did that, like
entitlement. Mm,
the entire right, and it just was like I'm facing it every turn when I was there. So I really had to look at it and to start to untangle it for me of like, it's only going to bother me if I believe I'm entitled or obligated rather.
right,
If I don't believe I'm obligated, they can ask whatever they want.
right. And it's going to roll right
Like,
off my back because I'm
nope.
solid within. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
bingo. So hearing you talk about three-quarters in Costa Rica, tell us about how did you choose where to go? What was the overall, progression of where you went? Did you have the major places picked out and then little choices here and
No,
there?
well, Costa Rica was the only place that we kind of knew ahead of time, in July. So my journey started in July, early part of July. My friend Guy and I started talking about doing some this specialized doming in Costa Rica. So we'd kind of, put a pin in it
Hmm.
there. So that was the only place that I really knew. And otherwise it was unfolding. So
Right.
Montreal was kind of fun in that, I'm on the dating app and I'm looking and I'm like, why are all these men? I'm in Waterloo, okay? Waterloo, Ontario, and 600 kilometers away. What is that? 400 miles? I don't know. Do the math. 600 kilometers away, I'm getting like pinged from like six different guys in Montreal on this app. I'm like, what is wrong with you, Bumble? Like you're fucking
Yes, you're
retarded.
free.
Thank you.
You are allowed to swear here on the edge.
Excellent. And then it was just like, well, maybe the universe wants you to go to Montreal. I'm like, oh, that feels right. And so I
Love
ended
that.
up in Montreal, right?
Okay.
So and this
Paying
is the thing is like
attention.
paying attention. What are those little niggles? Like, where are you supposed to go? And and sometimes it was a matter of like, okay, look at the map, what lights up, figure out where you need to go. At one point, I end up in Renfrew, Ontario, which, I swear to God, it is not on anybody's fucking bucket list. Okay. It is a small town, it is Hicksville, but I needed to go there because there were things that I needed for there
Yeah. What things?
for whatever reason.
What things did you need there?
Um, It was a turning point for getting stronger. I had been really sick prior to doing this journey, so my body
Mhm.
was really weak. So there, I was doing a lot of hiking and swimming, um, and I was starting to get the opening for seeing the obligation piece and seeing where I feel like I need to run away rather than just like say no. Right? So I
Right.
remember some guy hitting on me in a laundromat, and I avoid eye contact with him because I don't want to have to say no instead of just
Mhm.
like, thanks, but no thanks.
Right.
You know?
Like an empowered woman.
Yeah, yeah. So there was some interesting things in there for sure.
And you
Yeah.
went to so Costa Rica and Canada, other places in Canada, and Bali was a spot you went to.
Yep.
And I love the piece. Where was this? Where it was the gold rush town?
Dawson City, Yukon, Canada.
Dawson, yeah. I
Yeah.
loved that. I mean, it was
Oh, it
so
was, yeah,
it just jumped out at me like the irony of being there, like as a woman who's making money off of as a sex worker, and
yeah,
the power of that, and that the gold rush, the women that were the making their money, the brothel owners and women who ran them, and that in a patriarchy you're going to make some, okay, we're going to talk about all those things. Are in charge, then watch us. We're going to make some money off of controlling you sexually.
yeah,
Um, Fascinating. What
yeah.
did you discover there?
Oh, Dawson City was so many gifts. There was a lot of um, making like amends for a past life there
Hmm.
and having been the, horrible person that, stole other people's gold and cheated people. And so I was there to make amends to the earth, because of course mining is very much of a raping the earth
Of course,
situation.
yes.
So I did a lot of deep energy work there, healing the earth, working in the graveyards, a lot of things I didn't put in the book because you can't put everything in there.
Right.
Um, but I think it was also very healing for claiming this identity of the dominatrix and feeling empowered in it because the town was so open and welcoming. And here's this small town,
Right.
yet everybody comes from away, and so you have this mix of people who are diverse, and there's diversity everywhere. Like you see diversity, especially of genders and sexuality, and it's very open and very accepted. And that was beautiful. And then I thought the other thing that was just such a lovely little ironic twist is the book that I found when I was there. Um, and I'm trying to think of something frogs. I can't, it's in the book. But it's about a woman who is a sex worker and she loves it, and she's doing it because she loves it. And I was like, ah, this, it was like perfect timing. And I
Yes.
just happened to stumble upon it on this, little, the lending library pieces, right? The take a book, leave a book.
Right.
Again, just we get what we need
Yes, when
when
we
we
pay
stay
attention.
open to it.
Mm, Say that again. We get
We
what?
get what we need when we stay open to it.
Amen. Full body chills.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, the power piece of being fully in your sexual power, fully in your life force and your creative. There's just there's not the I have a quote here. Um, where is it? I loved this quote. Sexuality is one of the ways that we become enlightened, actually,
Mm,
because it leads us to self-knowledge by Alice Walker, who wrote The Color Purple
it's
People.
yeah.
Unbelievable. And
It's so true. There's actually some scientific studies now in looking at how the peak of orgasm
mm,
and a height of sexual ex or spiritual experience. So
mm,
somebody who's in like a very deep spiritual transformative kind of experience, it lights up the brain the same way an orgasm does.
of course it does. I mean, that,
Of course.
it's so not shocking at all. And I so grieve the women around the world that are repressed sexually, that
Yeah.
choose to be, some women are not lucky. They're repressed because they're repressed and they
Yes.
cannot escape it. But here in the United States, well, I don't know with the Supreme Court that we have and where we're going,
Mm.
but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. I promise.
No.
Although I still love to. Um, but the choice, we get to have the sense of repression that we live with and the lack of sexual fulfillment that's so what's the percentage? 80% of people are sexually unsatisfied? Women? I mean,
Well, it depends on where in the world, but probably on
I'm talking about
average,
in the United States at this point.
it's sadly really, really high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there's
So,
so many things, but I think most women could change that a little bit on their own. Even if it's like if your partner won't change, the very least claim your own sex life.
yeah,
The one that you have for you.
yeah,
That can be fulfilling if you can't get great sex with your partner. But ideally, start educating your partner of how to pleasure you, or start educating yourself of how to pleasure yourself, and then
bingo.
you can educate your partner.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And to not have shame around that and to really grow that curiosity muscle and
yeah,
set aside the shame and set aside the status quo and set aside the cultish. I know it's far easier said than done as I say it, but that's the work. Set aside the cultish religious beliefs about it being sinful and that we need to be, the purity bullshit, all of it.
yeah.
um so surrender is key on your website, which I loved, and it's key. It what did what is what's your definition of surrender? And how did your understanding of surrender expand while you were on this year-long journey?
I think beginning, I would have thought surrender was, you know, moving into this space of I'm going to become like monk-like and so zen and spiritual that I'm always, in this kind of space. But now I would say surrendered is this trust, this deep trust that when I take aligned action, things have a way better chance of coming into play for me. Now, and I say this from a place of privilege because, you and I live in a part of the world that we have extreme privilege as women. Um, and so, but it's within the confines of what's available that we can create the best reality that we can. It's not to say that every woman in the world can go and change her life as dramatically as I changed it or have the things that are possible for me here. But what is possible, we open the door up to being able to, really have the full depth of it. I think the other big thing is that in having that trust, there's a sense of I am safe and I am cared for.
Mhm.
And when we live in that place of feeling safe and cared for, then all the crazy of the world can carry on, but we can still feel good in our bodies.
If ever we need to feel that way in these crazy times, it's now.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautifully said. And so you work with people in a variety of ways around surrender. Share with us the ways in which you work as a professional dominatrix, do you still do massage?
No.
Yeah, but you
So
work with,
yeah,
you do
so the
plant medicine.
plant medicine, absolutely. Plant medicine is fantastic for surrender, for healing, for opening things up. And it is not for everyone.
Understood.
Okay. Every modality has, it has its sweet spots. The dungeon work, taking people in there, for those that are a little more inclined for the kink, it is a way to learn to not make life about you. It is a
Mm,
way for you to drop in, to be in your body because you start, having some impact play and that brings you into your body.
mm.
And then having this sense of you're cared for, you're taken care of, your safety is there, and trusting that while your limits are being pushed. So it's interesting as I'm talking, I'm like, oh, this is very much my journey that I experienced, but I'm taking people through that on short terms with the dungeon work.
Mm.
Um, and then, body work, so getting into healing the yoni, um,
What
you
is
know,
that for our
obviously
listeners?
for women. So yoni is the word that encompasses all of, so it's not just the vagina, it's also the vulva, it's also, it's the whole entire package, um, your whole sexual organ.
Mm.
And in doing that work and physically getting in there and touching on where the trauma was, because that's for most women, there's been sexual trauma.
Mm.
And by being able to get inside and touch it and release it, you transform the body, you transform the life. Like women have incredible experiences of what opens up because all of a sudden you're fully connected in your body. And then of course, deeper sexual experiences. You have better orgasms. Um, the other modality for those that maybe can't come in person is I work remotely, and we will go through some energy techniques, some psychotherapy things that I've learned along the way, working with the inner child, but in a kind of cranking it up, um, inner child work on steroids.
Right.
So there's a lot of different modalities. I have a lot of skills from I think we're coming up to 35 years now.
Wow.
Um, so I love being able to just move and adapt. What does the person need? And this is again, it's that listening. I'll connect in with the universe and go where I'm guided.
Mm.
Take the session where I'm guided, and then they're like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "Because I listen. That's all."
Well, and you've trained yourself to listen. You've
Yes.
trained yourself to really, I know this exists and I'm going to give it my full support. And like any other muscle, I'm going to grow it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
takes trust. It takes trust to get to that place where like, okay, I've got this inkling to do this or go here or hey, I think we need to do this modality for you. There's a trust level of, okay, I'm gonna say what I've got.
Right. Well, and there's trust level in the dungeon work. I mean, I think about, the relationship of trust with control in the dungeon room and who's going to play what role. And talk to us
Hmm.
a little bit about that in, some of the dynamics that play out in the dungeon.
Yeah, that I think that's the most visible place that we can see this dynamic of surrender and control. Because if the person who's come in, if they're trying to be in control, then they will do subtle things of telling me how to do something or trying to help me. Like,
Okay, and we're back. We had some tech issues. So we were talking about the the relationship of control with surrender and how that plays out, that dynamic plays out in the dungeon.
yeah.
And you were
So
talking about some of the little things that people would do.
some of the little things, yeah. So I find people will try to even just something of like, oh, trying to assist me, or oh, here, let me move. And I'm like, if I want you to do something, I will tell you. Your job is to only do what I tell you to do. And so it's very conflicting. I mean, I know that their heart is in the right place. They're not doing this because they want to be a jerk. They have to learn. And so every time there's another layer of like, nope, give up control. I got this. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then they get to drop deeper into that container of like, okay, I don't need to figure out how you need me to be because you're going to tell me how I need to be. And
Right.
that's a very different setup.
Wow, that so begs the question of how we healers and or we helpers or people in service, how what we do might be related to control.
Mhm.
It's a very interesting perspective. Wow, I've got to think about that. But continue.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful space. And I think I see the transformation differently in men and women. With men, they've never had a container where they don't have to be in charge. They don't have to pretend to know everything that's going on and what they're doing. And for women, there's a space of um, relaxing into it. Again, like they're in charge, but in a different way. They're always trying to manage everybody as opposed to um, men try to fix everything, and women are always trying to manage and trying to
Mm,
make sure everybody's safe, everybody's okay, everybody feels good. And there's two different reasons, but for both, they come around to finding more of who they are in letting go. And that surrender in the dungeon allows them to shut their brain off. And that turning the brain off is very powerful for being able to drop in and surrender. Now, eventually you're going to need to turn your brain back on, but hopefully we start training you to be able to be less of a control freak in your day-to-day life, because you have these moments where you're in that deep bliss and surrender.
mm,
And then you go back out in the world and you're like, oh, I don't think I need to be doing quite as much as I thought I did.
yeah. I've made some new neural pathways.
Mhm.
I can let go of some of that. I can surrender some of that.
Yes.
Yes. Wow. It's so fascinating to me, all of it. I I love speaking with you. So I'm looking at our time here. I could just go on and on and on and on and on with you. We've some one of these days I'm just gonna have to get you back on the show yet again. But so have you had a session in the dungeon that you feel you can describe that has changed your perspective on the work that you do and on people in general?
Mm. I think all of them do. Um, I have a new client that I've been working with, and he brings out this beautiful caring side of me. So he has a lot of health challenges. He broke his leg, broke his femur, and so he's got these hip issues. He's had to have a second hip surgery. So we've had to modify a lot of what we're doing. Um, but because he drops in and he's just so loving being in that surrendered space, giving himself over to me, that it's like that nurturing piece comes out. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm all equally evil, and you know,
Yes.
but
Are you a good
it's
witch
this,
or bad witch?
exactly both.
Yes, and both and.
And both. And good witch, bad witch. Yes. So it's this lovely piece of seeing how he gets to just keep transforming. I keep ramping up the pain aspect because he's able to tolerate more the more he surrenders. And then he's now in this space of finding the sensuality of it. And every time he's trusting me more. I love how he says he's like, you could do whatever because I completely trust you. I know that even if it hurts for a second, it's going to feel so good afterwards.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's beautiful. And the piece where he's so tapped into, what is it that makes me happy? He gets joy out of my evil laughs. He gets joy out of, all of the different aspects that I get to play in the dungeon. But I'm also very aware of keeping him safe, but not from that hyper vigilant, oh my God, I've got to do it because he's the client, he's paid me money. No, it's this is the dynamic. I want to keep him safe because I care about him, and we're forming this bond that's beautiful. And yes, it's professional, it's paid, but it's also real.
Totally. I get that.
Glorious.
Yeah, completely glorious. Well, when you're so connected and you are so deeply connected to yourself and your desire to help others transform in the same way that you have, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, what did writing this book and sharing it, letting it go out in the world, what did you learn? I know.
I
What
cried
didn't I
so
learn?
much.
Right.
I just cried so
Do we
much.
have another hour?
Right? We need another couple hours. Short story, long version short story is that every piece of this book was about my personal transformation. It was about healing. So I had the experiences, and that brought up a certain level of it. Writing it down brought up another. I'm like, oh my God, people are going to read this, and I'm writing this down.
Yeah,
Right.
you have.
And then the various rounds of edits. I did a round of editing so that I could pull out and heal all of my emotional stuff, so that the final round of edits, big round, was turning it into story that was lovely. And because I'm clear with it,
Right.
now I can release all of these very explicit stories. And I'm not holding shame about it. I don't have bugaboos. And so it's a story that can go out in the world. And my hope is that other people will read it, see themselves, and follow the transformation and feel that healing for themselves. Maybe not to the same degree, but somewhat.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautifully said. So tell us, what's some of the feedback? My listeners have heard my feedback. Run, don't walk to get this book. What have people been telling you? Share some of the feedback and the reviews you've received.
I think across the board, everybody has been so impressed with how vulnerable and honest.
Yes. It's shocking. It's so powerful.
Yeah. And then I love where people have, women in particular have pointed out the pieces of yeah, I don't ask for my needs. I don't ask for my pleasure to be a consideration. And them feeling that, and the book, they've said that the book has given them permission to start opening that up. And um, several of them have reached out for sessions as a result, because they want to open that door. They want to have that experience. A lot of them are blown away by the fact that I can have an orgasm without any stimulation. It's what we call an energetic orgasm. Standing in front of a waterfall and taking in the magnificence of the waterfall, and it just moves through my body with a full body orgasm. That's
Yeah.
That's the thing of when you're more open, and when you start working through your sexual trauma. That's a capability, and that's one of the beautiful things about being human.
Yeah, truly.
It's
Yeah, the sexual power as the life force energy. What
yeah.
about men? Have you heard from men in terms of, I mean, just sort of, I would think some of the lovers that you share about are so fine within themselves and so about pleasuring you and about and not about needing any follow up or any of the emotional baggage that can go along with having being obligated to have sex with someone, just
Mhm.
it have you gotten any interesting feedback from men about
I think some of the men have it's been eye-opening for them to get, that female perspective. What is that? What stops a woman from really enjoying orgasm? Because the lovers that I have now are very much, what I would call pleasers. They want to relish in their partner's orgasm, in their partner's pleasure. And so for them to understand what could hold a woman back has been eye-opening for them. Um, yeah, it's
I
been
can
beautiful.
well imagine. I remember when we booked your second conversation way back when, and we wanted to go deeper, and you said, talking about this, you were grateful because it's to come on the show and go to the depths that we did because it's such a taboo topic.
Mhm.
And hearing you now, hearing how grounded in all of this that you are, it's quite spectacular that it's not there's no sense that you are talking that you feel you could be talking about anything taboo. You are just so grounded in it. It's really remarkable and gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much for that feedback. Um, I have definitely stayed the course of working until that is, and it's like staying with the emotional processing and releasing the pieces. And so, yay,
It's
that's
just
a
heavenly.
lovely.
Yeah,
Mm.
really is heaven on earth, which is the work that you do, in my opinion. I'm sure in yours, but and people who work with you. Well, so we've we did the wrap up of the feedback. That was going to be our closer. What do you have any last couple of words of wisdom for what you hope people will take away from this conversation? And then we'll share where people can find you.
I think the hope for me would be an invitation to start opening the door a little more to your sex, to spirituality, to surrender, and just, to be a little more open today than you were yesterday.
Beautiful, beautifully said. So, listeners, you can find Dana at Tell Us Please.
So I am the only Dana Pharant in the world. My last name is spelled Pharant. So, quick Google, you'll find me. If you're on Substack, definitely follow me. There's some good, juicy stories in
Really
there.
great articles. Really
Uh,
great articles.
Oh, thank you, sweetie. I'm a little bit on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me there. Otherwise, I'm unplugged from social media. So find my website, Like I said, just Google Dana Pharant and you will find me in the places that I am. So.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. And last but not least, what's your leading edge? What's next for you?
Well, I do have more stories of the dungeon that I think are probably book number 7.
Wow.
Even though this book was so hard to write, I'm like, really, I want to do another book, but it's the way that goes, right? It's the artist thing, and like, oh, it was
Right, but
so hard. Let's do it again.
like postpartum. Oh my, well, I can't imagine. It's like you cracked it open with this book. And so, yeah, it's like I can't imagine the level of vulnerability is like off the charts, people. So, okay, well, then we're definitely going to have you back on the show. You'll have another book to plug. I love it.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the edge of every day.
My pleasure, Sandra. Always so good to hang out with you.
Truly. And listeners, remember, the edge is where you come alive. Until we speak again, take good care.
Come on. Hey everyone, thanks again for spending time with us here on the edge of everyday. I'm so grateful for your support. Please hit subscribe and follow us. You can find me, Sandra Bargman, across social media. Links are always in the show notes. And please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. Much gratitude to my inspiring guests. Thank you for sharing your challenges, your reflections, your wit and wisdom. And lastly, many thanks to Magic Thread Media and the executive coaching team at Create Magic at Work. Remember, the edge is where you come alive. The edge of everyday.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you, no man has fall under pressure. Come on.
Hey everyone, thanks again for spending time with us here on the edge of everyday. I'm so grateful for your support. Please hit subscribe and follow us. You can find me, Sandra Bargman, across social media. Links are always in the show notes. And please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. Much gratitude to my inspiring guests. Thank you for sharing your challenges, your reflections, your wit and wisdom. And lastly, many thanks to Magic Thread Media and the executive coaching team at Create Magic at Work. Remember, the edge is where you come alive. The edge of everyday.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you, no man has fall under pressure.
Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to a Magic Thread Media podcast.